And beginning the broadcast today, in the era of COVID-19, it's become abundantly clear that the certainties of any other planting season are anything but certain. And this is not going to be just another average year for many farmers. With that in mind, Nebraska Extension Agricultural Economics educator Robert Tigner has offered some suggestions as to how to make your marketing strategy better suited to these uncertain times. Market Journal's Bill Dodd has more.
Late in 2019, demand for oil began to decline as many countries began closing borders and doing away with non-essential travel. As more and more cases of COVID-19 were reported, more and more people around the world started staying home and off the road. This decline in oil consumption has been a prevalent facet in the recent downward trends of the global economy and has since cascaded into the agricultural economy as well. As oil prices dwindle and farmers around the Corn Belt are hitting the most opportune planting dates, pressure mounts on the prices of many agricultural commodities.
Boy, did we have a big decline in oil prices. It's probably going to take a while before those recover. And until they recover, we're not going to see much likelihood of corn prices and soybean prices making any significant recovery too. I was looking at the planting progress reports that were released. And so far in the United States, we have planted something like under 70% of corn in the United States. And if we look at Nebraska corn, it is about 80% planted. Iowa is virtually all planted. Illinois is about on average, and Minnesota is 90% planted for corn. So they've hit the optimal planting time frames. So they've set themselves up for a very large crop, possibility of a very large crop, and that will impact corn prices certainly.
With planting on track, projected crops could outpace our actual production history. If that were to happen, a greater downward pressure could be created on grain prices. In any normal year, you may get by on lower prices and a better than average yield, but this isn't a normal year, and for some, 2020 will be a year of marketing survival.
Yeah, it appears that this year is going to be a survival year because there's a lot of possibility that grain farmers will lose a significant amount of money. So what I'm suggesting is that the best outcome for them is that they recapture all the cash costs that they have and plan for that outcome. So that depends upon yields and prices, and those are the great unknowns. And right now at the front end of our growing season, there's a lot of variability that can occur because of weather events that happen across Nebraska, and especially in Iowa, Illinois, and Minnesota, who are larger corn and soybean producers than our state is. So I'm saying that this year is probably one of those years where farmers need to plan that they're going to lose money, but to minimize those losses as much as possible, and do that in a very stepwise and consistent fashion.
When making your marketing plan, there are several factors to take into account. According to Robert, the first thing you should establish is your cash flow price, though this may not be the most opportune time to calculate that particular figure.
Now, that's a difficult thing right now to calculate because we don't know what yields are going to be. Farmers do know what their cash flow output will be for corn and soybean production. We know what our expenses are going to be. We know what our cash outlays are. And what I suggest people use is their APH as the average to calculate a cash flow price per bushel. You calculate a yield better than APH, and you calculate yields lower than APH too, because we don't know yet how the growing season is going to proceed. And if we do have lower than APH yields, actual production history yields, then we're going to have an issue if our cash flow is highly diminished.
Furthermore, at this point in the year, many producers have already paid many of their expenses for the growing season. However, Robert tells me there are other expenditures that could be given a second look.
So there's not a lot that they can do to change their costs. What they do want to review, though, is what the optimum nitrogen rate will be and whether or not they want to put on additional water. There's a cost to that water. That last half inch of water may not bring back as much revenue as they had hoped for. Okay, that's the first part of that plan. The second part of that plan is to understand what your costs are and establish pricing parameters around those costs, above those costs, those cash flow costs, and set those in a stepwise fashion upwards. The second thing in a written plan is to commit to date, make sales, don't miss opportunities. We had a lot of opportunity well, it was a short window of opportunity, but we had an opportunity to sell significantly higher priced corn around May, June last year, 2019, than we did at harvest time. Committing to making sales during that usual May, June time period is important for this year so that people don't miss out on those opportunities to make higher cash flow into their operation than they would have otherwise. If the scenario plays out that yields are very, very good, we're not going to likely have better opportunities to make sales, corn sales, soybean sales at any other time than May and June, maybe early part of July.
In short, it would be best for producers to know what crop price they will need to reclaim all of the cash they have and will spend this year. Putting a marketing plan into action can help ensure that the operation will stay strong enough with no further debt and a brighter future in the coming seasons. Reporting from Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.